Hello students, in today's session, let's learn about vaccines. Vaccine is a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity against certain disease. Usually, a vaccine consists of a biological agent that represents the disease-causing microorganism. It is often made from a weakened or killed form of the microorganism, microbial toxins, or one of the microbial surface protein antigens. The use of vaccines dates back to 1796 when Jenner demonstrated that milkmaids who had contracted cowpox were immune to smallpox. Jenner showed that inoculating the vesicular fluid from the cowpox lesions into the skin of susceptible individuals could protect them against smallpox infection. The purpose of vaccination is to provide protection by priming the recipient's immune system to recognize and attack the disease-causing organism. The introduction of vaccines to prevent infectious disease has had a transformational effect on human health. Declaration of the global eradication of wild poliovirus type 2, vaccination against measles, which is a highly contagious disease caused by morbillivirus, introduction of a meningitis conjugate vaccine, which nearly eliminated the deadly disease, are the best examples that explain the effect of vaccine in health management. The World Health Organization has reported vaccines for the prevention and control of 27 infections, with many other vaccines in the discovery pipeline. Recent advances in the vaccine technology stemming from the application of genetic engineering are now providing an opportunity to target new diseases. A candidate vaccine against malaria recently completed phase 3 clinical trials. 2 Ebola candidate vaccines are also in the final stages of clinical trials. The research community is also making sustained efforts towards the development of vaccines against diseases which are difficult to treat, such as cancer, hepatitis C, and tuberculosis. There is no recipe for the perfect vaccine. Many vaccines look promising in the preclinical testing, but they fail during the slow and expensive clinical trial process. We still don't know what type of immune response a new vaccine will have. Vaccines must also be perceived to be safe. There is a very high bar for approval of vaccines. One of the most successful vaccines ever produced, the smallpox vaccine, is a live vaccine and would probably not have been approved by today's regulators due to safety concerns. Vaccines may be monovalent or polyvalent. A monovalent vaccine contains a single strain of a single antigen. Example, measles vaccine. Whereas a polyvalent vaccine contains 2 or more strains, serotypes of the same antigen. Example, OPV. Live vaccines. Live vaccines use a weakened or attenuated form of the germ that causes a disease. Because these vaccines are so similar to the natural infection, they create a strong and long-lasting immune response. Just 1 or 2 doses of most live vaccines can give you a lifetime of protection against a germ and the disease it causes. Live vaccines are used to protect against measles, mumps, rubella, rotavirus, smallpox, chickenpox, yellow fever, shingles. Let us understand the safety and stability of live and attenuated vaccines. Since live and attenuated vaccines contain living organisms, there is a degree of unpredictability, raising some safety and stability concerns. The whole cell vaccine against Bordetella pertussis, developed in the US, reduced the annual rate of infection from 200 per 100,000 to less than 2 per 100,000. However, reports of irreversible brain damage was observed as a rare consequence of pertussis vaccination. Couple of deaths in Japan leads to a decline in vaccination rates in the late 1970s. As a result of those 2 deaths in Japan, the vaccine was temporarily suspended. Thereafter, careful studies did not confirm that pertussis vaccination was a primary cause of brain injury. But in response to public concerns, an acellular vaccine was developed containing purified antigens that induce protective immunity. Attenuated pathogens have the very rare potential to revert to a pathogenic form and cause diseases. Example for this are the very rare serious adverse events are vaccine-associated paralytic poliomyelitis and disease-causing vaccine-deprived poliovirus associated with oral polio vaccine. Functional immune systems eliminate attenuated pathogens in their immune response. For example, individuals with compromised immune system, such as HIV-infected patients, may not be able to respond adequately to the attenuated antigens. If the vaccine is grown in a contaminated tissue culture, it can be contaminated by other viruses. One such example is retroviruses infection along with measles vaccine. As a precaution, live and attenuated vaccines tend not to be administered during pregnancy. However, the actual potential for fetal damage remains theoretical. For example, numerous studies have demonstrated that accidental rubella vaccination during pregnancy did not result in an increased risk of birth defects. Live and attenuated vaccines can have increased potential for immunization errors. Some LAVs come in lyophilized powder form. They must be reconstituted with the specific diluent before administration, which carries the potential for programmatic errors if the wrong diluent or drug is used. Many LAVs are subject to program failure when this is not adhered to. Now, let us see what is an inactivated whole cell vaccine. Inactivated vaccines are made from microorganisms such as viruses, bacteria, etc. that have been killed through a physical or chemical processes. These killed organisms cannot cause disease. Immune response with respect to administration of inactivated whole cell vaccine may not induce an immune response, and the response may not be long-lived. Several doses of inactivated whole cell vaccines may be required to evoke a sufficient immune response. If you look into the safety and stability of the inactivated whole cell vaccine, inactivated whole cell vaccine have no risk of inducing a disease as they do not contain live components. Inactivated whole cell vaccines are considered more stable than live and attenuated vaccines. In case of subunit vaccines are like inactivated whole cell vaccines that do not contain live components of the pathogen. They differ from the inactivated whole cell vaccines by containing only the antigenic parts of the pathogen. These parts are necessary to elicit a protective immune response. Subunit vaccine contains a purified antigens rather than the whole organism. An example is the Bordetella pertussis antigens. Subunit vaccines are not infectious, so they can safely be given to immunosuppressed people, and they are less likely to induce unfavorable immune reactions that may cause side effects. Antigenic properties of various potential subunits of a pathogen must be examined in detail to determine which particular combination will produce an effective immune response. The disadvantage of subunit vaccines are that the antigen may not retain their native conformation, so that antibodies produced against the subunit may not recognize the same protein on the pathogen surface. Often, a response can be elicited, but there is no guarantee that the immunological memory will be formed in the correct manner. Subunit vaccines can be further categorized into protein-based subunit vaccines, polysaccharide vaccines. Protein-based subunit vaccines present an antigen to the immune system without viral particles using a specific isolated protein of the pathogen. A weakness of this technique is that isolated proteins, if denatured, may bind to different antibodies than the protein of the pathogen. Commonly used protein-based subunit vaccines include acellular pertussis and hepatitis B vaccine. Acellular pertussis vaccines contain inactivated pertussis toxin protein and may contain one or more other bacterial components. The pertussis toxin is detoxified either by a treatment with a chemical or by using a molecular genetic techniques. Hepatitis B vaccines are composed of the hepatitis B virus surface antigen, a protein produced by hepatitis B virus. Earlier vaccine products were produced using purified plasma of infected individuals. This production method has been replaced by recombination technology that can produce HBs antigen without requiring human plasma, increasing the safety of the vaccine by excluding the risk from potential contamination of human plasma. Let us now see about polysaccharide vaccine. Some bacteria, when infecting humans, are often protected by a polysaccharide or a sugar capsule that helps the organism evade the human defense system, especially in infants and in young children. Polysaccharide vaccines create a response against the molecules in the pathogen's capsule. These molecules are small and often not very immunogenic. As a consequence, they tend to not to be effective in the infants and young children under the age of 18 to 24 months. They induce only short-term immunity, that is, slow immune response, slow rise of antibody levels, and there won't be no immune memory. Polysaccharide vaccines are effective against meningococcal disease caused by Neisseria meningitidis. Some of the advantage of subunit vaccines are they are applicable to people with weakened immune system. Subunit vaccines have long-lived immunity. Subunit vaccines are relatively safe since only part of the virus are used for these vaccines. Some of the disadvantage of the subunit vaccines are low immunogenicity, needed to be used with good adjuvant, multiple doses needed for a long-term immunity. Recombinant subunit vaccines use attenuated viruses or bacterium to introduce microbial DNA to cells of the body. The protein components that induce immune response are synthesis peptides or antigens expressed in eukaryotic or prokaryotic expression system. Most of the vaccines currently being developed are based on this purified recombinant protein or antigen subunit. 3 recombinant subunit vaccines are currently available in the market, including hepatitis B vaccine, human papilloma virus vaccine, and influenza vaccine. Expression systems for vaccine production include prokaryotic expression system such as E. coli and eukaryotic system such as yeast, mammalian or insect cells. Let us understand how toxoids can act as vaccines. Some bacterial diseases are not directly caused by a bacterium itself, but by a toxin produced by the bacterium. One example is tetanus. Its symptoms are not caused by the Clostridium tetani bacterium, but by a neurotoxin it produces. Immunizations for this type of pathogen can be made by inactivating the toxin that causes disease symptoms. Inactivation of vaccine can be done via treatment with chemicals such as formalin or by using heat or other methods. Immunizations created using inactivated toxins are called toxoids. Toxoids can actually be considered killed or inactivated vaccines, but are sometimes given their own category to highlight the fact that they contain an inactivated toxin and not an inactivated form of bacteria. Combination vaccines. Some of the antigens can be combined in a single injection that can prevent different diseases or protect against multiple strains of infectious agents causing the same disease. Example, combination vaccine DPT combining diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus antigens. Combination vaccines can be useful to overcome logistic constraints of multiple injections and accommodate for a children's fear of needles and pain. Potential advantage of combination vaccines include reducing the cost of stocking and administering separate vaccines, reducing the cost of extra healthcare visits, facilitating the addition of new vaccines into immunization programs. However, it is very important that combination vaccines are carefully tested before introduction. For instance, adjuvants in a combination vaccine could reduce the activity of one antigen and excessively increase the reactivity of another antigen. There could also be interaction with other vaccine components such as buffers, stabilizers and preservatives. If you look into the components of a vaccine, vaccines include a variety of ingredients including antigens, stabilizers, adjuvants, antibiotics and preservatives. Antigens. Antigens are the components derived from the structure of disease-causing organisms which are recognized as foreign by the immune system and trigger a protective immune response to the vaccine. Stabilizers. Stabilizers are used to help the vaccine maintain its effectiveness during storage. Vaccine stability is essential, particularly where the cold chain is unreliable. Instability can cause loss of antigenicity and decreased infectivity. Factors affecting the stability are temperature and acidity or alkalinity of the vaccine. Bacterial vaccines can become unstable due to hydrolysis and aggregation of protein and carbohydrate molecules. Stabilizing agents include magnesium chloride, magnesium sulfate, lactose, sorbitol and sorbitol gelatin can be added. Adjuvants. Adjuvants are added to vaccines to stimulate the production of antibodies against the vaccine to make it more effective. In conventional vaccines, adding adjuvants into vaccine formulation is aimed at enhancing, accelerating and prolonging the specific immune response to vaccine antigens. Chemically, adjuvants are a highly heterogeneous group of compounds with only one thing in common. Their ability is to enhance the immune response. If you need to know about the new delivery techniques in vaccination, future immunization delivery methods, however, may be quite different from what we use today. Inhaled vaccines, for example, are already used in some cases. Influenza vaccines have been made in the form of a nasal spray. One of these vaccines is available every year for a seasonal flu. Other possibilities include a patch application, where a patch containing a matrix of extremely tiny needles deliver a vaccine without the use of a syringe. This method of delivery could be particularly useful in remote areas, as its application would not require delivery by a trained medical person, which is generally needed for vaccines delivered as shot by syringe. Another issue researchers are attempting to address is the so-called cold chain problem. Many vaccines require cold storage temperatures in order to remain viable. Unfortunately, temperature-controlled storage is often unavailable in parts of the world where vaccination is vital for disease control. One of the reasons smallpox eradication was successful was that the smallpox vaccine could be stored at relatively high temperatures and remain viable for a reasonable period of time. Some contemporary vaccines, however, cannot withstand such temperatures. One possible approach to this problem was studied in Jenner Institute of University of Oxford. Starting with a small filter-like membrane, the researchers coated it with the ultra-thin layer of sugar glass with viral particles trapped inside it. In this form, the viruses the researchers used could be stored at temperatures of up to 113 Fahrenheit for 6 months without losing the ability to provoke an immune response. Looking into the future targets, the success of vaccine against childhood diseases has created enthusiasm for researching additional targets. The future of immunization depends on the success of medical research for vaccines that are simpler to administer, will survive transport even without refrigeration, and will provide more substantial and long-lasting immune response. And in parallel, the continuing success of vaccine against so many infectious diseases has inspired scientists to try to use similar methods to combat disease that remain lethal to many people, such as malaria, HIV, and other diseases for which there are not yet effective vaccines. To summarize, the benefits of vaccination extend beyond prevention of specific diseases in individuals. They enable a rich, multifaceted harvest for societies and nations. Vaccinations make good economic sense and meet the need to care for the weakest members of the societies. Reducing global child mortality by facilitating universal access to safe vaccines of proven efficacy is a moral obligation for the international community, as it is a human right for every individual to have the opportunity to live a healthier and a fuller life. A comprehensive vaccination program is a cornerstone of a good public health and will reduce inequities and poverty. Thank you.